I thought betrayal had a sound, maybe the crash of glass, maybe a scream. But when I opened the bedroom door that afternoon, there was only silence, the kind that hums right before your life splits in half. My husband, Daniel, and my best friend, Claire, froze like actors caught mid-scene. The sheets tangled around them were the colour of the dress I'd loaned Claire last week. I remember thinking absurdly, I'll never get it back now. They said my name. I didn't answer. I just turned around and walked out. That was the last time I set foot in that house. The divorce was fast, cruel, and precise. Daniel's lawyer shredded my life into paperwork I barely understood. When it was over, I had nothing left, not the apartment, not the savings, not even my car. Months later, I discovered why. They'd forged my signature on joint transfer forms, siphoning everything into accounts I'd never see again. By the time the truth came out, the money was gone, and so was any piece of the woman I used to be. I slept on a friend's couch for weeks, then on another. Eventually, even pity ran out. That's when I remembered the house, the one I grew up in, the one I swore I'd never return to after my parents died. A weather-worn farmhouse 2 hours from the city, standing alone at the edge of a forgotten road. When I arrived, the place looked smaller, lonelier. The paint peeled off like it too had been abandoned by time. Dust lay thick as snow on every surface. The air smelled of mildew and memory. I lit a candle and walked through the rooms. Each one whispered a different ghost. My father's laugh, my mother's perfume, the creak of the stairs where I'd once hidden Christmas gifts. Upstairs, in my old bedroom, I found something strange. A suitcase brown leather, edges cracked, a tag with my name written in my father's handwriting. The sight of it stopped me cold. For a moment, I just stared. Then I reached for the latch. Inside lay a neat stack of bills wrapped in rubber bands. $70,000. Beneath it, a plane ticket dated for the following week. Destination: Barcelona. And on top of everything, a folded note. This is just travel money. The real inheritance awaits. My hands trembled. My father had died 10 years ago. So how could a suitcase with my name on it, packed for a journey I'd never taken, be waiting for me now? I sank onto the bed, the candlelight flickering against the worn wallpaper. The world I knew, the one Daniel and Claire had burned to ashes, had just opened a door I didn't know existed, a door I wasn't sure I should walk through. But the ticket was one way. And that note felt like a heartbeat in my hands. I didn't sleep that night. The house creaked and moaned like it was remembering too much, and I kept seeing that suitcase every time I closed my eyes. The money, the ticket, that impossible note in my father's handwriting. He'd been gone for 10 years, buried in the local cemetery, a simple headstone, no mysteries left to solve. Or so I'd believed. By dawn, the candle had melted to a stub. I made coffee on a rusted camping stove, staring at the suitcase on the kitchen table. Every instinct told me to walk away to take the cash, sell the house, start over, but curiosity has teeth. It doesn't let go once it bites. The plane ticket said Barcelona, dated exactly 1 week from now. I turned the paper over and noticed something I hadn't seen before. Faint pencil marks, numbers and letters. Coordinates. I copied them into my phone, and when the map loaded, my heart jolted. It wasn't Barcelona. The coordinates pointed to a small coastal town 2 hours north of it, a place called Suitcase. That's where my father's note was leading me. I spent the next few days cleaning the house, though it wasn't really about cleanliness. I think I was trying to scrub the fear away. Every object felt haunted. The photographs, the dishes, the hollow tick of the grandfather clock. That's when I found the second clue. In my father's study, the drawers were empty except for one locked. I tried every key in the house, but none fit. Finally, frustration gave way to desperation, and I pried it open with a screwdriver. Inside lay a single manila envelope, yellowed with age. My name was written across it in the same familiar script. My hands shook as I unfolded the letter inside. If you're reading this, it means life has already broken you once. I wish I could spare you from that, but pain has a way of finding the ones meant for more. I couldn't tell you the truth when you were young. It wasn't safe then. It may not be safe now. Your mother and I built a life from secrets not by choice, but by necessity. The money you found is part of what's left. The rest, what truly matters, waits where the sea meets the cliffs. Go there and you'll find what I couldn't finish, Dad. I read it 3 times, each word heavier than the last. Secrets. Not by choice. Not safe. It didn't sound like a farewell. It sounded like a warning. By the 5th day, I'd decided. I packed light, 1 bag, my passport and the suitcase. I sold my wedding ring for a plain upgrade and left behind the ghost of my old life. At the airport, I caught my reflection in a window, pale, exhausted, but alive. There was something fierce in my eyes I hadn't seen in years. When the plane lifted off, I watched the clouds swallow the city where everything had ended. Somewhere over the Atlantic, I realized something terrifying. If my father had hidden $70,000 in an abandoned house and written about danger 10 years after his death, then maybe his death wasn't what I'd been told. Maybe Daniel and Claire hadn't been the only ones who lied to me. The plane began to descend, and the coastline of Spain stretched below like a scar of light. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Barcelona." I looked down at the folded coordinates in my hand. I wasn't here for the city. I was here to find out what my father had died protecting, and before the week was over, I would learn some secrets don't want to be found. The road to Cadaqués twisted like a snake through the mountains, each curve revealing flashes of the sea below blue, endless, the kind of beauty that hides danger beneath its calm surface. By the time I reached the town, the sun was sinking. Whitewashed houses clung to the hillsides, their windows glowing gold in the dying light. Somewhere beyond them, the cliffs waited. The coordinates led me to a dirt road at the far edge of the town. It ended at a gate half swallowed by ivy. Beyond it, I saw a stone house perched at the edge of the cliffs, as if it had been built to look eternity in the face. A chill rippled through me. The gate wasn't locked. I hesitated, then pushed it open. The path crunched under my shoes as I approached the door. It looked abandoned, wood warped from salt and wind. I expected silence. Instead, I heard something faint inside. Music. A record player, skipping on a single note, looping endlessly. I knocked. No answer. The door creaked open with a sigh, and I stepped inside. The interior was frozen in time. Dusty shelves, faded curtains, the faint scent of tobacco. A jacket hung by the door, my father's jacket. I recognized the patch on the sleeve. My breath caught. He had been here, recently, by the look of it. I turned toward the sound of the record player, heart pounding. It sat on a wooden table, surrounded by photographs. Some were of my parents younger, happier. Others, though, were different. People I didn't recognize. Men in suits, women with sharp eyes, places marked in red pen on maps, and in the middle of the table, a small, locked metal box. There was a note taped to the top. If you found this, it means they found you too. Don't trust anyone until you open the box. My pulse thundered. They? Who were they? I scanned the room for a key, but before I could start searching, a floorboard creaked behind me. I froze. "Who are you?" a voice demanded. I turned slowly. A man stood in the doorway, tall, broad-shouldered, holding a flashlight that made the dust shimmer like snow. His face was hard to read, suspicion, surprise, something else I couldn't name. I'm just looking for my father," I managed to say. He lowered the flashlight slightly. "Your father?" "Yes." "Robert Hale. This was his house, wasn't it?" For a moment, silence. Then his jaw tightened. "Your father's been dead a long time." I swallowed. "You knew him?" The man hesitated. "I worked with him." My stomach turned cold. Worked with him? Doing what? He studied me for a long, uneasy moment, then said quietly, "You should leave. Right now." "Why?" "Because if you're his daughter, they'll come for you next." He stepped past me, grabbed the metal box, and slipped it into a canvas bag. "Wait!" I shouted, lunging toward him. "That's mine!" He shook his head. "No, it's his, and if you value your life, you'll forget you ever found it." He was out the door before I could stop him, disappearing into the fog rolling up from the cliffs. I stumbled after him, shouting his name, though I didn't even know it. But he was gone. Only the sea answered, crashing against the rocks below. And as I stood there, clutching the note that warned me not to trust anyone, I realized something terrifying. The record player had stopped. Someone else was still inside the house. Next part, the photograph and the stranger, where she discovers who the man was and the truth about what her father had hidden from her all her life. For a moment, I couldn't move. The silence inside the house was thick, not empty, but listening. I turned slowly, every nerve in my body braced. The record had stopped spinning, yet the air still hummed faintly, like a whisper behind the walls. Then came the sound, soft, deliberate, footsteps upstairs. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a rusted fire poker, and edged toward the staircase. Each step groaned beneath my weight, the house seeming to warn me away. Halfway up, I saw it, a shadow moving across the far wall, human-shaped, but wrong. Somehow too fluid, too slow. My grip tightened. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice shaking. No answer. When I reached the top, I found the bedroom door cracked open. Light flickered inside candlelight. I pushed it open with the poker and froze. The candle sat on the floor beside an open photo album, the same one my mother used to keep locked in her desk. The pages were filled with faces, some familiar, some not. But it wasn't the photos that made my blood run cold. It was the writing beneath them, dates, locations, handwritten notes like "Meeting Zurich, 1998. Contact compromised Lisbon. Retrieve file Project Mirror." And on the last page, a photograph of my father, standing beside the man who'd just taken the metal box. Underneath, R. Hale and Amp, Monsieur Vance Operation Lyra. Before I could make sense of it, a floorboard creaked again, this time right behind me. I spun around. A woman stood in the doorway, older than me, tall, her face sharp in the candlelight. She raised her hands slightly, palms open. "Don't scream," she said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you." "Who are you?" I demanded. "My name is Elena Vance," she replied. "Michael's wife." My pulse spiked. "The man who just—" "Yes," she said. "The man who just stole what could get us both killed." I lowered the poker, just a little. "What was in that box?" Elena hesitated, then sighed. "The last piece of what your father died protecting. Records, codes, evidence. Call it whatever you want. But it's the reason you're still alive, and the reason you need to disappear." "Disappear?" I repeated. "I just found my father's house. I'm not running." She looked at me for a long moment, then reached into her coat and handed me something, a photograph. It showed my father, younger, standing in front of a black car with a group of men. One of them wore a military uniform I didn't recognize. On the back, written in my father's handwriting, were the words, "If something happens, trust only the one with the scar." I looked up sharply. "Scar?" Elena nodded grimly. "Michael has one. Across his jaw. That's how your father knew he'd come." "But he took the box," I cried. "Because he thinks he's protecting you," she said. "And maybe he is. But there's more you need to know about your father, about what he was involved in. He wasn't just an engineer or a consultant, like he told everyone." My chest tightened. "Then what was he?" She took a step closer. "Your father worked for an international intelligence network off the books, the kind that never makes the news. When he died, half the operation vanished with him. The rest have been hunting for that box ever since." The words hit like thunder. I wanted to deny it, to call her insane. But the letter, the money, the house, the coordinates, it all began to fit, like pieces of a puzzle I'd never known existed. Elena's gaze softened. "If you want answers, you'll find them in the place he called the mirror. That's where it all began, and where it has to end." "Where is that?" I whispered. She hesitated, then handed me a folded note. "The coordinates are here, but listen to me, if you go there, you can't come back." And before I could ask another word, she turned and vanished down the stairs, her footsteps fading into the night. When I ran after her, the gate was swinging open. The fog had swallowed her whole. I was alone again. But this time I had a name, a photograph, and a warning. And a single question burning in my chest. What if my father hadn't died at all? The next morning, the sea was wrapped in fog, thick enough to erase the horizon. It felt like standing at the edge of nowhere. I packed what little I had left, the cash, the ticket, the letter, and the photograph with my father's handwriting. "Trust only the one with the scar." Elena's note contained another set of coordinates, deep inland, in the Pyrenees Mountains. I rented a small car under a false name and drove through twisting roads that cut through pine forests and abandoned villages. Each mile took me further from the life I knew, deeper into something that felt less like a journey and more like a summons. The road ended at a tunnel carved into the rock. At its mouth stood a rusted sign with a single word, "Mirror." The name hit me like an echo. For a long time I just sat there, engine idling, heart hammering. Then I took a breath, turned off the ignition, and stepped out. The air was cold enough to bite. My footsteps echoed off the stone as I entered the tunnel. The darkness swallowed the light behind me. Halfway through, I saw it, a door built into the wall, metal and old, but clearly reinforced. I pushed it, expecting resistance. Instead, it swung open easily, as if it had been waiting. Inside was a narrow staircase leading down, and at the bottom, a room. A single light bulb flickered above a metal desk. Files were stacked neatly beside an old tape recorder. The smell of dust and machine oil filled the air. I approached the desk and saw a folder labeled with my father's initials. R.H. Confidential. My hands shook as I opened it. The first page was a photograph of my father, sitting at the same desk, smiling faintly. Behind him, on the wall, was a mirror cracked down the center. The next pages were documents, coded messages, receipts, names I didn't recognize. And then, at the bottom, a sealed envelope, my name written on it. If you've made it here, then the past has caught up with you. I never wanted this life for you, but blood has a way of tracing its own map. You must understand what I hid wasn't money. It was the truth. The world you think you know runs on lies, and the mirror is where those lies begin to crack. If you're reading this, I'm not dead. Not in the way they told you. I had to disappear for you. Find Michael Vance. He knows the rest. Dad? I felt the room tilt. The paper slipped from my hands. He was alive. Somewhere out there, the man I'd buried a decade ago. But before I could even process the words, a sound cut through the silence, a low hum, mechanical, growing louder. Lights flickered red across the walls. A door somewhere behind me slammed shut, and then a voice cold, automated, female. Unauthorized entry detected. Security protocol initiated. I spun toward the stairs, but the way out had already sealed a steel barrier sliding into place with a metallic hiss. Panic clawed at my throat. I grabbed the files, the letter, anything I could reach. The hum grew louder. The mirror on the wall began to vibrate, distorting my reflection. For a heartbeat, I saw two figures behind me, both wearing masks. Then darkness. Something hit me from behind. The last thing I heard before everything went black was a man's voice whispering in my ear. "You should have stayed away, Anna." When I woke up, I was no longer in the room. I was in a moving car, wrists bound, the night rushing past outside, and across from me, in the dim light of the dashboard, sat the man with the scar, Michael Vance. He wasn't driving, and behind the wheel, reflected in the mirror, was my father, alive. At first, I thought I was dreaming. My father alive, older, but unmistakably, him sat behind the wheel, eyes fixed on the dark road ahead. His hair was silver now, his face thinner, but that same quiet gravity filled the space around him. For a few seconds, none of us spoke, only the engine hummed, carrying us through the mountains. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it over the tires. "Dad?" My voice broke on the word. He didn't look at me, not right away. "I hoped you'd never find that suitcase," he said finally. "But I knew you would." Tears stung my eyes. "You're alive. All these years everyone thought—" "That I died?" he interrupted, a bitter smile flickering. "I had to, for your sake." Michael Vance, sitting beside me, kept his gaze forward. The scar on his jaw caught the passing light. He looked tense, like someone expecting an explosion. I swallowed hard. "What is all this? The money? The notes? The files? What did you drag me into?" My father's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "The mirror wasn't just a project. It was an operation one meant to expose corruption that reached through governments, banks, entire systems. But we discovered something worse. The people funding it were the same ones we were investigating. Michael spoke quietly. Your father tried to leak it. They killed everyone involved. My father nodded, except me, because I made them believe they had already succeeded. The words hit me like a cold wave. 10 years of grief manufactured, my mother's breakdown, my own exile, all because he'd been hiding from people powerful enough to erase lives. Then why now? I asked. Why bring me into this? He finally turned, meeting my eyes. Because they found me again, and the only way to protect you now is to finish what I started. Before I could answer, headlights appeared in the rearview mirror, 2 cars, moving fast, closing in. Michael's jaw tightened. They're here. My father pressed harder on the gas, the tires screaming as the road curved along a cliffside. Who are they? I shouted over the wind. People who believe the truth is a weapon, he said, and they'll kill anyone who tries to use it. The car jolted as bullets hit the rear bumper. Michael grabbed a pistol from the glove compartment and returned fire through the window. The sound of gunfire echoed through the valley. My father's voice was calm, almost eerily so. Anna, in the glove box there's a drive. Take it. I fumbled it open and found a small flash drive sealed in a waterproof casing. A single word was engraved on it. Light. That's your real inheritance, he said. Everything they did, names, accounts, proof. The road narrowed, ending in a sheer drop where the cliffs met the sea. Dad, there's nowhere to go. He looked at me one last time, his eyes soft but determined. Then you'll go where they can't follow. And before I could protest, he jerked the wheel. The world spun, glass shattered, the sound of metal against rock tore through the air. Then water black, freezing, infinite, everything went silent. I woke up on the shore, coughing seawater, the flash drive still clutched in my hand. The car was gone. So was Michael. So was my father. Search teams never found them. The cliffs were too deep, the currents too strong. Weeks later, I used the money to reach a journalist my father once trusted. Together, we released the contents of the drive to the world. The headlines hit every major outlet within days. Politicians resigned. Banks collapsed. Systems cracked. The mirror had shattered at last. It's been 6 months. I live quietly now, under another name, in a small apartment overlooking the sea. Some nights, when the wind is right, I swear I can still hear his voice, calm, patient, proud. He didn't die to leave me money. He died to leave me truth. And in the quiet that follows, I finally understand the note in the suitcase. This is just travel money. The real inheritance awaits. It wasn't about wealth. It was about courage. And every time I open my eyes to a new morning, I carry that inheritance with me. Because sometimes the most powerful legacy a parent can leave is the light they taught you to keep burning in the dark.